All right, y'all. So we are back with some more conspiracy theories and unexplained mysteries. All right. But before we get to the videos today, we got to unplug some more people out of the matrix, man. And you do that by smashing the like button, then typing hashtag unplugged in the comment section. All right. And if you're new, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, join the family, and let's check out this craziness.
Welcome back to our special Trump in Asia edition. I'm Tucker Carlson. Tonight we're standing right now on the North Korean border. Our interview with the president didn't simply focus on foreign policy or the decay of American cities, though you could fill hours of programming on those topics. The federal government is being increasingly open about its decades-long investigation of UFOs. They have spent millions of dollars, and officials admit now they've seen many things they don't understand. We decided to ask the president about it. Here was his semi-cryptic answer. Watch.
You gave an interview the other day in which you said you've been briefed on unidentified flying objects. Are they real?
Well, I don't want to really get into it too much, but personally, I tend to doubt it. I mean, you have people that swear by it, right? And pilots have come in and they said, and these are pilots that are not pilots that are into that particular world, but we have had people saying that they've seen things. I'm not a believer, but, you know, I guess anything's possible.
We spoke to a government official recently who said the U.S. government had wreckage from a UFO in a facility on an Air Force base. Are you familiar with that?
I haven't heard that, no. I haven't heard that. It has not been within government, has not been a big thing, but I've seen it. I've seen it on your show, but I've seen it. I don't assume it's correct, but, you know, I have an open mind, Tucker.
No, you do, Mr. President. Thank you for that.
Nowadays, you can believe anything, right?
Nick Pope is a journalist. He once investigated UFO sightings for the British Ministry of Defense, and he joins us tonight. So, Nick, I thought that was an interesting answer. The president said he had been briefed, quote, I don't want to get into it, but he's skeptical the UFOs are real. What does that add up to, would you say?
Well, first of all, I think it's absolutely refreshing to get a straight answer from a president, a sitting president on this, without dodging the question, without making some humorous reference to a science fiction movie. So that was good to hear. I understand the skepticism. I think everyone that started off looking at this within government starts skeptical. But as you say, this reference to the briefing that he has is very interesting. And when he says he doesn't want to get into this, does that reflect just that he's personally not that interested, or maybe that he received some classified information that he's not able to share about all that?
Yeah, see, for me, the answer sounded very media trained. It sounded like he answered that question perfectly. The way someone would have wanted him, the way somebody would have trained you to do it, the way somebody would have coached you to do it. That's what gets me about it. You know, it just came off very, very media trained.
That he received some classified information that he's not able to share about all this.
We spoke to a credible, non-crazy U.S. government official who said categorically, flat out, the U.S. government has wreckage from a UFO. Didn't say it was extraterrestrial, but it was an unidentified flying object, and the U.S. government has material from that aircraft, whatever it is. That's an amazing claim. How would the president not have heard that, assuming it's true?
Well, I think... Yeah, I think that's the big thing, assuming it's true. I mean, I would think that the president has probably asked the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, firstly, is there a threat here to the United States? And secondly, setting that question aside, what are we dealing with? I mean, is this our own tech? Is it Russia? Is it China? Or is it from somewhere further afield? I mean, he will have asked for all information held on this, and will be trying to figure out what to do. I mean, he has said himself, something feels a little bit different about all this, with the US Navy pilots and the radar operators now coming forward. So there is something different and important and big happening.
So what would you say, since you speak to a lot of people who are involved in this, not just in the professional UFO questioning world, which I think most of us have a right to be a little skeptical of, but of just, ordinary pilots and people going about their business in government who have intersected with these stories or seen these objects themselves. What is the majority view about what these are? Russian, Chinese, American, or something else?
Well, I'm not sure there is a majority view, and even within government, and I've been here myself with the British Ministry of Defence, there were conflicting opinions. I mean, look, if the President would like more research and more briefing, I'm certainly happy to help with that, and I could probably round up a couple of other former intelligence officials from within the US administration who've looked at this, and we could certainly, I'm sure, get some people who aren't afraid to think the unthinkable and ask those big what-if questions. But look, whatever happens with UFOs, this may happen on President Trump's watch. I mean, we may get, with the current radio telescopes, certainly with the next generation telescopes, we might get absolute confirmation that there's other civilizations out there, and therefore this might happen on President Trump's watch. He'll be the one who has to make the announcement, and what a historic announcement that would be. My fellow Americans, people...
What president, whomever's in office, will want to deal with that storm of having to announce that aliens do exist and having to deal with the barrage of questions that state or start off that you guys have been lying to us? Because like he said, one of these telescopes are going to discover something, whether it be the James Webb, whether it be one of the Voyagers, whether it be something's out there or something we put out there is going to discover something that they're going to have to stand in front of and say, yes, we've discovered life forms. Yes, we've discovered aliens. Yes, we've known it's going to come out. Or somebody who's inside and who has inside knowledge, which I'm surprised it hasn't happened by now anyway with all these camera phones, but they're doing a very good job with the security of making sure no phones are allowed in these facilities. Somebody who's inside is going to expose them to the point to where they can no longer deny it. They're going to have to stand in front of that.
Of the world, we are not alone. So I'm glad to hear he's open-minded and thinking about this, because there has been an upsurge in these sightings, and who knows what the future will bring.
There's something terrifying about all that. But we're not in control, as you often point out. Nick Pope, great to see you tonight. Thank you.
It's almost like a religion of thought.
Shadows on the clouds.
Look to the heavens, lines in the sky that captivate conspiracy theorists. Chemtrails, followers convinced something evil and secret is going on.
See, and look at.
Y'all, I saw y'all in the comment section talking about chemtrails, so I had to get us a video today to bring me up to speed, because a lot of y'all are way ahead and I'm trying to catch up. So y'all were like, they've been doing this chemtrails for a minute, and it's been trying to been kept top secret. So I'm trying to figure it out today, bro.
Something evil and secret is going on.
See, and look at. It's got that pattern.
They believe the government or some shadow organization deliberately sprays chemicals to control our minds or to alter the weather.
Okay, I can hear you now. Why are we wasting time on this? Social media has become fertilizer for this conspiracy. Recent surveys indicate 1 in 5 Americans believe in this theory. Now, science is just starting to confront it. So, what are the facts? Let's verify with our experts.
Dr. Jeffrey Forrest, Chair of Aviation and Aerospace Science at Metro State in Denver. Dr. Ken Caldera, atmospheric scientist and professor at Stanford. These are not government agents. They are scientists. That's verified. But first, Chris Zadnik of Denver. He's a believer.
So I could see a line in the sky.
Yes,
right
two of
up
them.
there right
yes.
now. So what do you think is going on up there right now?
They do tend to put them in front of the sun, which makes sense if they're trying to block sunlight.
What would you say is your strongest piece of evidence proving that chemtrails are real?
I think, I honestly, it might seem a little bit crazy that I literally have almost 400 videos.
1, 2, 3. X means death.
What do you think is going on up there?
Well, what they say is that this is sort of a desperate measure to counteract global warming.
Zadnik is quick to say he doesn't trust the government. Can you blame the guy? After all, our government doesn't really have the greatest track record when it comes to telling the truth. Agent Orange, the Tuskegee syphilis study, the human plutonium injection experiments. I can go on and on. That's the government. But what about science?
Way back, this is a tight fit. Okay, pilots and scientists are uncomfortable talking about chemtrails.
What is that white line in the sky behind a plane?
Well, the white line behind a jet is a natural process that goes on with the relationship between the aerodynamics of the aircraft and the atmosphere.
They won't even say that word. Scientifically, they're called condensation trails. Contrails for short.
So what you're really doing is you're sort of artificially generating a cloud.
It's like a long white cloud. That's essentially what it is.
That's right.
How many of y'all have seen these and just never really knew what it was? I'll be honest, me. This is all new to me. Something that I've seen now. I've seen them before, absolutely, but never really thought too much into it. Y'all have now opened me up to a whole nother conspiracy that I'm very much believing y'all are onto something and have been onto something with this. And it makes sense with all the talk about dimming the sunlight because of global warming. So I'm with y'all.
A cloud.
It's like a long white cloud. That's essentially what it is.
That's right.
As jet fuel burns, it produces mostly water vapor. Picture my mouth like a jet engine. I know that sounds weird, but as I exhale, my breath contains a lot of water, so we'll see something like a cloud. Sounds simple, right? Let's get scientific.
Jet fuel is mostly kerosene, a hydrocarbon. When planes burn jet fuel, they produce exhaust. That exhaust is mostly hot water vapor. That also contains carbon dioxide, trace amounts of sulfur, nitrogen, microscopic metal particles, and carbon. The water vapor molecules latch onto the particles like carbon, allowing the water in its gas form to collect into floating bits of liquid, or, because it's so cold, tiny ice crystals. That's condensation, when water vapor becomes a liquid or ice. And so you get a cloud, especially when the humidity and air temperature are just right. The higher level of humidity in the sky, the longer the water remains condensed. When humidity is really high, the trails look like a long cloud, which is why contrails appear in the sky for a while. Winds can make them expand.
That is also, I think, part of the fear factor that some people hook themselves into because they see a contrail being formed and then hours later it's still there and sometimes it's growing.
So what we see up there is not the government intentionally putting chemicals into the sky for geo...
Wait. That would be the perfect cover up in my opinion. Because it's been doing it so far. I never thought to think that's what it was. So it's a great cover up. You think it's just a plane emitting kerosene or whatever else is coming from it, when in all actuality, use the planes because nobody will never think that. They just think of as normal day-to-day activity of people flying from one state to the next. Use that in conjunction to what you want to do, and nobody will never suspect it.
Engineer.
Hashtag unplugged in the comment section. Are y'all unplugged yet?
No.
I don't know why people, they have a scientific or technical question, and instead of going to the scientists, they'll find some crazy website and believe what the crazy website says.
Perhaps the most convincing and highly cited scientific evidence comes to us from this study conducted by atmospheric scientist Dr. Caldera. Out of 77 top atmospheric scientists across the globe, 98.7% of them categorically rejected the existence of a secret spraying program. That one holdout was a guy in Alaska.
He didn't think, oh, that means there must be a secret government spraying program. He's saying, oh, look, once I got a sample and there was stuff in it that I couldn't explain.
There's no accepted scientific evidence whatsoever that proves a covert program is real.
I really desperately want it to not be true.
Based on our highly credible experts and scientific approach to chemtrails, we can verify the chemtrail conspiracy is false.
Thanks to the hard work of archaeologists all over the world, we're continually learning new things, not only about our planet's history, but about people that lived thousands of years ago. But some archaeological discoveries can be pretty creepy, and they reveal a darker side of history that we often never knew existed. Number 5. Usually, when archaeologists uncover mummies from long ago, the remains are hard to remove from the ground, since they've become very fragile during the years that they lay buried beneath the earth. But on occasion, a discovery is made in which a mummy is almost perfectly preserved. This is the case with many discoveries made in peat bogs, due to high acidity levels and the lack of oxygen, which are usually a major contributor to the decay of human remains. One such discovery, known as the Grobel Man, was made in Denmark in 1952 by a peat cutter named Tage Sorensen. While working in the peat bog, Sorensen's shovel hit something hard beneath the surface, and when he investigated further, he realized what it was. He immediately contacted a doctor who first inspected the site, and then contacted an archaeologist, who quickly identified the bog body as dating from the Bronze Age. The body was so well preserved that it still had hair intact, as well as beard stubble that was about 2 weeks old at the time of the man's passing.
Sheesh.
It was also found that his last meal consisted of grains, some meat, and seeds. While the Grobel Man's hands were inspected more closely, it was speculated that he hailed from a noble family, since he showed no signs that he had taken part in manual labor, which most men from the Iron Age would have. Following clues that were found on the body, scientists believe that he may have been the victim of a sacrifice that took place at that very spot where he was discovered. He's thought to have been around 35 years old at the time of his passing, and he stood between 5'3" and 5'5" inches tall. Although his hair is now red, it's believed that it was originally either blonde or brown, but his time spent in the bog has turned it into the red color that we see today. It's almost certain that at the time that he passed away, he was suffering from a toothache since his teeth were badly worn down, likely because of the types of food that he was eating. The Grobel Man is currently on display in Denmark, where visitors are given the unique opportunity to take a look into the life of a man who lived nearly 2 centuries ago. Number 4. Most archaeological digs take place in remote areas, where ancient civilizations once lived, and in most cases, that area is now completely abandoned. But there are some archaeological sites that are uncovered by accident. That's exactly what happened in Melbourne, Australia, when a new subway stop was being planned for a metro tunnel, and a 6-month archaeological survey was underway. Workers were surprised and horrified when they stumbled across a strange find: around 1,000 human teeth. This may sound like a scene out of a horror movie, but the explanation is much more mundane, if not less creepy than that. It would turn out that a dentist named Dr. J.J. Forster was practicing dentistry in the premises next to the dig in 1898, and he had some dubious methods of disposing of rotten teeth that he had extracted. The explanation was found—
You know, as a kid, I had that question: what do they do with the teeth? And they remove them, or different things, or how do they dispose them? Never thought you would be digging one day on an archaeological discovery hunt and come across some dead teeth like that, you know? Well, you would if you got the skull around, but just an abundance of teeth in a grouping? Yeah, that would definitely seem strange.
After it was noticed that most of the teeth showed signs of serious decay, and rather than treat the problem, Dr. Forster decided it would be more efficient to just extract them. Records show that Forster wasn't the only dentist on the block at that time, but it would seem that he was the most trusted since he advertised his services as being painless, which would have been impossible since anesthetics used at the time were less than effective. But it wasn't just a bunch of rotten teeth that was uncovered at the site. When it was excavated more thoroughly, archaeologists also found more than 500,000 other artifacts, including a trove of old coins that were thought to have once belonged to Forster, but they fell through his business's floorboards while he was practicing there. Other items that were found include a child's slingshot, earrings, parts of other buildings, a fork with a bone handle, and pipes, just to name a few. Thanks to the artifacts, we're able to better understand what it was like to live in the area at the time, and all of the items that were unearthed are now on display at the Heritage Victoria, where they can be viewed by members of the public. Number 3. Back in 1838, amateur archaeologists in Moundsville, West Virginia, which was then called Flats of Grave Creek, were conducting the first ever excavation of the Grave Creek Mound when they unearthed a strange-looking stone that's kept scientists and archaeologists scratching their heads ever since, and we're no closer to determining what its purpose is today. The stone measures just under 2 inches in width and 1.5 inches high, and it contains strange symbols on the front while the back is completely smooth. Grave Creek Mound is a burial mound that was created over a long period between 250 and 150 BC by the Native American people. Along with the strange stone, they found the remains that would be expected at a burial site, but also ornaments that were created by those who lived there at the time.
And when they find stuff like that, sometimes I'll be wanting to say, put it back. Just put it back. Leave it where it is. Let's take some pictures, and then we'll go back and research with the pictures, bro. Removing stuff from a burial mound? You brave, bro. You brave.
However, it's the stone that's captured the imagination of scientists, since it contains what looks like either written language or a cipher of sorts.
Exactly.
But because it was omitted from documents after it was found, many people doubted the stone's authenticity. And in 1877, the Ohio State Archaeological Society attempted to rectify this. They found that all witness accounts taken at the time stated that the stone was indeed unearthed from under that mound, and it was declared as authentic. But there are still some who are skeptical, and they believe it was placed there as a hoax. There have been many attempts to decipher the symbols over the years, but the characters don't seem to have any logical, phonetic, or alphabetical structure, and therefore they consider it as a mere decorative piece. Sadly, no one knows who has possession of the stone today, and the only physical copies that we have were cast in plaster, meaning that many of the symbols may look slightly different than they did on the original. It's thought that this was last owned by Wills de Haas, but when he passed away in 1910, it simply disappeared and it remains lost today. The plaster castings can, however, be viewed at the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History, where it's still being kept at present. Number 2. In 2020, workers were clearing a piece of land in Germany in preparation for the construction of a chicken farm, when they unearthed a complex burial site along with other valuable artifacts. The site is now regarded as one of the most important digs found in Germany in the past 40 years, since it seemingly has ties to a Germanic lord. The site also contained the remains of around 60 people and some animals, mostly livestock, but strangely, the only one missing was the lord himself. Adding even more mystery to the site is the fact that the remains of 6 women were found buried around the central cauldron made of bronze. It was then speculated that the lord's remains may not have been found because he was likely cremated, and his ashes were placed inside the cauldron. And at first, it was believed that the 6 women were his concubines, but it's now thought that this was a misconception. Other theories that have been put forward are that the women were offered as sacrifices upon the lord's death, or that they were members of some type of cult and that they decided to follow their leader to the afterlife after his demise. Researchers believe that the tombs were created between 480 and 530 AD, during a time when Germanic tribes were invading territories belonging to the Romans as they fled from the Huns. Among the other artifacts that were found were a gold coin depicting the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno, a small statuette, and a trove of clasps that were intricately decorated. But some researchers aren't convinced that a Germanic lord is buried here. Instead, they've theorized that the tombs were created for a wealthy owner of an upper-class manor that stood near the site at the time. The theory that a lord was buried at the site started when it was noticed that a row of graves curved at a certain point, and it's thought that they were constructed this way to avoid a structure that's no longer there, which may have been the lord's tomb. Work continues at the site, and plans are in place to have DNA extracted from the remains that were found, in hopes that it could teach us who these people were and where exactly they came from before being buried at this curious site. Number 1. Most of us are familiar with the time in history known as the witch craze, which lasted from around the 14th century to the 1700s. During this period, many people, mostly women, were accused of practicing witchcraft, and they were often found guilty without the benefit of a proper trial. Scotland is considered to have been the epicenter of this mass hysteria, and thousands of people lost their lives here after being accused of witchcraft, many of whom were completely innocent. However, there was one woman from Toryburn in County Fife called Lilias Adi.
Fighting right now. I'm trying not to profile this lady. I'm trying not to profile this lady. I'm trying not to profile this lady. But as soon as they showed the picture, yeah, I wanted to be like, yeah, she was one of them. But I'm trying not to do that.
Who confessed to being a witch in 1704 after it was noted that one of her neighbors, Jean Nelson, had fallen ill, and it was believed to have been because of her handiwork. To make matters exponentially worse, she confessed that she had, on one occasion, met with the devil himself in a cornfield, and she made the decision that she would follow him as a dutiful servant. She stated that she and the devil would often visit with other witches, but she refused to name them, but added that he would often visit her in her house in the form of a mysterious shadow. She then went on to recount how she and the devil had brought others to the same cornfield, where they were made to dance while a strange blue light followed them around the field. It didn't take her...
Damn, I know it was said in Batman, but sorry, this quote just comes to mind. Dance with the devil in the pale moonlight. I know it was said in the movie Batman. I don't know where that quote come from. So it could be a real quote. That's the first thing popped into my mind as soon as they said that.
She then went on to recount how she and the devil had brought others to the same cornfield, where they were made to dance while a strange blue light followed them around the field. It didn't take her long to be found guilty, since she confessed to the charges, and she was put in prison, where she eventually passed away. After her passing, her remains were buried between the high and low tide markers in the Firth of Forth estuary, and a heavy stone slab was placed on top, which was common practice when burying a witch at the time, since it was believed that she would be unable to escape with the weight of the stone bearing down. Unfortunately, grave robbers helped themselves to much of her remains, and even pieces of her coffin, and a campaign was started in 2014 to retrieve these items, but to no avail. But it did lead to the discovery of Lilias's tomb, when the large stone slab was found near the waterline. In 2017, a facial reconstruction was done, giving us a proper look at what Lilias's face really looked like, and it's hard to believe that such a sweet-looking lady could have been in league with the devil, and it's likely that her confession was coerced since she was being mistreated during her time in prison. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah, man, that whole era back then in those times where they had that era of the witches, we've heard stories, man. Like you said, it was a lot of deaths surrounding those times. People being accused, people confessing, different things, man. It's all interesting, though. Y'all get at me in the comment section, man, and let me know what y'all thought about these videos today. These were some good ones. It's your boy L, man. Y'all stick around and stay tuned until next one I'm gone. Peace.